Okay, we're starting Parshas Yitro, a very important Parsha. It's the Torah portion where we receive the 10 Commandments, where God makes the ultimate covenant with the Jewish people. The ultimate revelation, the greatest proof to Judaism is from this Parsha. So there's a number of interesting issues we have to discuss today. And a lot of what I'm going to speak to you about is from a sefer, a little sefer called Ma'oz Latam, that was written by Rabbi Yitro of blessed memory, who passed away almost 20 years ago. And he was a big kiruv worker and gave a lot of nice shiurim on Parsha. And a modest sefer was published that talks about this, and he brings from a lot of different beautiful sources that we're going to share with you today. Now, if you look at the source sheet, look at the second source, where we've got the Hebrew and English of the first pasuk of the Parsha. You look at the second source on the front page, after the Ramban, you should have in Hebrew and in English. You take it either way you like it today. First verse says, Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midyan Chosen Moshe. Yisro, the priest of Midyan, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard Eskol Asher Asa Eloikim LaMoshe Yisrael Amo. He heard everything that God did to Moshe and Israel, his people. Ki Hotzi Hashem Es Yisrael MiMitzrayim. That Hashem took the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. And then afterwards, the pasuk says that, and then he came with Moshe's wife and children, and he came to the Jewish people by the camp over there. So that's why the name of the parsha is called Yisro, because the second word is Yisro. Now, we have to understand, to appreciate this context here, saying he was a priest for Midian, in our contemporary terms, would be as if to say he was like a cardinal. Okay? Like a Catholic cardinal. Now that's already a very choshev priest. It's not stam a priest. He was a big guy. So we could, if we were writing this in contemporary times, we'd say, and Cardinal Yisro heard what happened. Okay? The Medrash tells us that Yisro tried every type of idol worship in the world. And now he goes to the desert to see what Judaism is all about, to investigate it. Okay? Now, the question is, that hits you right away, this parsha is probably the most important of all the 54 parshios. Because it is the parsha of the Sinai revelation. That is the ultimate proof of Judaism. So if you have to figure and sit down and figure, what's be the name of this parsha? Yeah. If I would ask you, we're going to have a 54 chapter book, and the highlight of the book is in the, let's see, we got 12, 13, the 16th parsha. 16th? 17th parsha. The highlight is in the 17th parsha. What are we going to call it?
SHMOT.
You call it Revelation, call it SHMOT, call it Sinai Revelation, call it what you want. But why are you naming it after a priest? Yeah, a non-Jewish cardinal?
That's right. The first question.
Can you imagine? Take the holiest book in the New Testament. I don't know what it is, and name it, and name it Moses. Like, what are you naming it after? A goy, a non-Jew, and not just a non-Jew, but a non-Jew who was a cardinal, right? So that seems very odd. That's number one. Now, second point is, now the first source, I don't have time to go through all of it. Ramban brings down, there's a great dispute in the Talmud as to when this story with Yisro happened. In the first chapter of this parsha, Yisro comes, we'll see what happens, they greet him, they bring him in, and then there's a whole fanfare, and then you'll see Yisro sees that Moshe is judging the people, and it's taking a long time, people are waiting in line, he gives them advice to get other judges, etc., etc. That's all the first section of this parsha. The next section talks about the Jews encamped at Sinai, and they got the Torah. And Hashem gave them the 10 Commandments. So the big debate in the Talmud as to whether this story is in the chronological order correct, or it's out of order. Now, we have a rule that not every story in the Torah does not necessarily go in chronological order. Torah is not a history book. It's a book for lessons for living. It happens to follow, generally, the history of the Jewish people, but it doesn't have to follow the rules of a history book, because that's not the point of it. And therefore we have a rule that says, Ein muktam u'mochar b'Torah. Not everything is going to be in order, and it doesn't have to be in order. Now, generally, you like to keep things in order, unless there's a reason to take it out of order. Right? And there have been stories, earlier we learned in Sefer Bereshis, it says that Yitzchak died, and then later came the sale of Joseph. We know historically Yitzchak was alive at the sale of Joseph. So that doesn't have to be in order. There's a big debate in the Talmud as to whether it is this story in the correct order, is it not in the correct order? Did Yisro come, as the story suggests, before the Torah is given? Or did he come after the Torah was given? Rashi is of the opinion that Yisro came after the Torah was given. And this story is out of order. So now, the question is, so we answer, well, we have a rule. It doesn't have to be in order. Fine. But even though it doesn't have to be in order, there should be a compelling reason why God chose to put it out of order. You just don't say it's out of order. Why would you put it out of order unless you had to put it out of order? You could have put first the story of getting the Torah at Sinai, then put the story of Yisro coming. Let's keep it in the chronology. If you say it was out of order, so put it out of order. Put it back in the right order. Put it after the story. But more than that, if it is indeed out of order, and the Torah would record in the right order, then this whole section of Yisro would be later. So what would we have named the Parsha? Wouldn't have named the Parsha Yisro then. Would have named it based on the first few words that dealt with giving the Torah. You call it Sinai. Sinai. That would be a nicer name. So it comes out like this. God writes this event out of order. And by writing it out of order, it becomes the beginning of the Parsha. And by beginning the beginning of the Parsha, we made the name Yisro, which seems to be so not what this Parsha is about. So Hashem is doing it all to make it look weird? So it must be there's something much deeper over here. It must be there's a good reason why Yisro was put in, and it's a good reason why a cardinal's name should be the title of the giving of the Torah at Sinai. All right, that's what we have to investigate over here. But let's continue and look at this verse again. We're going to see lots of problems with this verse. If you look carefully at this verse, and source 2 again, let's look exactly what it says. Yisro, the priest of Midian, the father of Moshe, heard which Hashem did to Moshe and Jewish people, that he took the Jewish people out of Egypt. Okay, let me ask you a question. Tell me, from the verse, what did Yisro hear? What did he hear, specifically?
God did.
He speaks of what God did to the Jews and Moshe, that he heard that God took the Jews out of Egypt.
Right.
Is it pretty clear what he heard? You read the text. Is it clear? What did he hear? It says he heard that God took him out of Egypt. If I'd ask you a question on a test, what did Yisro hear? What would you say? He heard that that Hashem took the Jews out of Mitzrayim.
What he did for what he had done for Moses, and that he brought him out of Egypt. So it seems to imply that he did other things and
no, key doesn't mean and. Well, the and really isn't a good translation. It should be that. The English is, I don't like the English translation there.
And shouldn't be there.
I mean, what he did, okay, but I hear key usually means that.
Right.
Usually means that or because.
Right.
So, but it's the and is
belittling like what he heard.
Anyway,
that's all what he
so
heard.
now we have a Rashi below. You have it in Hebrew and English, which is an incredibly difficult Rashi. Rashi asks. Now remember, Rashi only is there if he finds a problem with the text. He sees there's a problem with the text. That means something's missing in the text. He helps us out. Otherwise, you don't have to make a commentary. There's no such thing as making a commentary unless there's a need for a commentary. You know, as opposed to, if you watch the Super Bowl or watch any sporting event, there's always a guy who does the play-by-play, and the guy gives you the commentary. Now, he's only doing that really to fill the time in between plays, because it would be very boring. If you listen to radio announcers 50 years ago, it was really boring. He'd say the play, and then there was silence on the radio for like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, till the next pitch, till the next play. So no, people aren't going to listen to silence. And you get this other guy who knows how to talk a lot. So he gives you the color commentary. He'll say, oh, well, he did this kind of block for this reason. There's a whole lumdus to this, But really, you don't need commentary unless there's something troubling you. So Rashi was writing a commentary, must be something's troubling him. So let's look at troubling Rashi. Rashi asks a question. Mashmu Shamaba. What did he hear that he came? Now I don't understand the question. The Torah tells you what he heard. What's he asking? What did he hear? What do you mean what did he hear? The Torah tells what he heard. So I don't understand the question. Rashi's asking on the text, what did he hear? What do you mean, what did he hear? The text said what he heard. He heard that God took the Jews out of Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
Now, look at his answer, is even more complicated. What did he hear? Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, Umelchemes Amalek, and the war with Amalek. That was all in last week's Parsha. So guess what Rashi does? He asks a question that we wouldn't have asked, and he gives the wrong answer. He gives the wrong answer. The answer was in the text. The text said God took them out of Egypt. What does he say? It doesn't say they come out of Egypt. It says they split the sea and had the war with Amalek. Now, maybe you could stretch it and say, okay, Amalek was splitting the sea was part of getting out of Egypt. It was the final step. Maybe we could stretch that. But the war with Amalek, what does that have to do with going out of Mitzrayim? So there's commentaries try to, work around and try to come up with answers. One of the commentaries on Rashi says, well, since the end of the Torah portion talks about the war with Amalek, so why does the Torah put Yisro's coming right before the giving of the Torah, when it's not in its place? To teach you that was the war of Amalek, that got him to come. But still, the question is, but that's not what the text says. The text says, Yitro heard that the Jews were taken out of Mitzrayim by Hashem. That's what he heard. So why does Rashi have to ask the question? And B, why does he answer differently than the text? Very, very difficult Rashi. Okay. So now, let's look at one other interesting thing. When Yisro came to be with the Jewish people, he presented a very great political problem. And that is, can Moshe, the leader of the Jewish people, give a whole greeting and a whole big pomp and circumstance and fanfare to a cardinal? Can you imagine if a cardinal would come to visit the cardinal, like I don't know who these guys are, the Archbishop Cardinal of Canada. I don't know the rules, okay? Let's say better, the cardinal, let's say even better, the Pope.
Yeah.
The Pope came to Thornhill. And now the Vatican would call me. This would never happen. Mashiach's coming if I get this call. And I get a call from the Vatican. The Pope would like to come and visit your synagogue.
Don't bring it on yourself.
Okay? And, and he wants to meet. He wants to meet you. He wants to meet the Shul and the congregants. Can he schedule you in his visit? Now, that would be a major philosophical and political issue for a rabbi to take this on. Because when you're greeting, that means you're acknowledging him and giving him credibility. So that's not such a simple thing. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. But this Yisro coming, by the fact that he was a cardinal, so if Moshe was a plain guy, okay, a plain guy, and, a son-in-law should greet his father-in-law, okay. But Moshe, he's the leader. He represents the Jewish people. He stood for certain values and belief systems. And it might be a problem for him to shower honor on a person of false beliefs. So Moshe didn't know what to do. He wasn't sure what to do. He didn't know what to do. So the Medrash tells us that Moshe asked Hashem for guidance over here. And Hashem said he should go. Mm-hmm. He should go. So what does this mean? Well, it means a lot. It's not just him going. Because, Moshe is like figuring out, let's say, lahavdil, not to compare. If Obama decides to greet somebody, does Obama go by himself? No. Quite often, if he goes, he'll go with the vice president, and with the president, with the speaker, and a couple senators, and then a whole entourage, and all this. Well, Moshe is even better than Obama. Okay? If Moshe went anywhere, first of all, Aaron went out with him. And whenever Aaron went out, then the elders went with Aaron. And whenever the elders went out, the entire Jewish people went out. So effectively, if Moshe goes out, everybody goes out. You imagine, 3 million Jews come out to greet the cardinal.
He married his daughter.
So you can imagine, it doesn't matter. That's private. That was before Moshe was Moshe. You know, that was, you know, prior to Sinai. Okay, I married her. But now to give him such honor? So imagine what it was written the next day in the desert times.
Yeah.
Entire Jewish people, after receiving the Sinai, accord honor to a cardinal who does not believe in anything that's written in the Ten Commandments. Right? So that's a big problem. And the Medrash discusses that issue at length. And in Pasuk Zayin, as you see in the fourth source, as Rashi brings down, it says, okay, they met each other, and then it says, and he kissed him, and he kissed him. So Rashi brings down, if you look in source 4 at the bottom left, Rashi brings down from the Mechilta, from the Medrash, says, I don't know who kissed who. It says, and he kissed him. Moshe and Yitro met each other, they embraced, and he kissed him. We don't know who kissed who. So they bring a proof. I don't want to give the details. They bring a proof that it was Moshe. Since it said Ish, a man, and Moshe refers to the Ish, that Moshe is the one who kissed him. So the Medrash, you know, is going to figure, you know, you're going to think it's a little bit peculiar and rather odd for this tremendous display of respect for a cardinal. So in source number 3, the Medrash says, Hashem says, and don't worry about it. Hashem says, Ani hu shemakarev. I'm the one who brings people close. Vani hu she merachek. I'm the one who tells people to be at a distance. So it isn't what you will or won't do that will ultimately create a person's closeness to Judaism or distancing. Not what you're going to do, Moshe, but it's really me. It's me, and I'm telling you, it's a worthwhile investment to go. So Hashem decided you're going to take him in. So we need to explain what was the dilemma of Moshe and the resolve he received from Hashem to indeed go and greet him. So what was the give and take? Like, why is Hashem making an exception to the rule? Really, it shouldn't be. Moshe said, I don't think I should be doing this. It's not appropriate. He said, no, it's okay, you can go. I'm the one who brings close. I'm the one who distance. Bring him close. You have to understand why. And what are we supposed to learn from that? So now, does that mean now, if the Pope wants to come, we should bring him close too? Okay. Is that what it means? Is this what this Rashi is suggesting?
Yeah.
So let's bring every cardinal to visit our shuls. Is that something we should be doing? I don't know if we would want to do that necessarily. So we have to understand what this means. So to begin to understand, so those are the basic questions. Again, the main question is, why do we name the most important Torah portion after a non-Jewish cardinal? A. B. According to the opinions that say the story is out of order, it's even more complicated, because it's out of order. Why is it out of order? And what message is there for us that it is out of order? And because of that, the name of the Parsha changes. And what is Rashi, and what does it mean that Hashem indeed says we should give honor to this Yisro fellow? And we asked, the other question was, what's going on with the Rashi? Rashi's saying, what did he hear? What did he hear? And this is what he heard. It's obvious what he heard. And Rashi's telling us he heard something else. So you look carefully at the Rashi, you'll see Rashi's a genius. There's a much deeper question that he's asking, but we're not going to get to yet. But he is saying one extra word. If you look carefully at the Hebrew, and I believe the English says it too. The text only says Yisro heard. So he asks, Ma shmua shama, what did he hear? Uba, and he came. He added a word, and he came. The text just says he heard. The next pasuk says he came. Rashi saying, what did he hear and he came? That extra word is really asking, what did he hear that clinched it for him? What do we mean? The truth of the matter is, did any other people in the world hear about this Exodus? Was it like a private event? Mm-hmm. No, everybody knew about it. The whole world knew about this. The whole world heard about Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the question is, of course, the text says, Yisro heard what happened, heard that God took him out of Egypt. But the question is, but his hearing, but he came. So what was it about what happened that made him come, that clinched it for him? To which he says, well, he heard they went out of Egypt, but that didn't clinch it. He still wouldn't have gone. When he heard that the sea was split, and there was a war with Amalek. That's what clinched it and made him come. See, Rashi's asking more. He's saying, "Uba, what made him come?" Obviously, he heard. We know what he heard. He heard that God took him out of Egypt. But what made it that made him come? You hear a lot of things, but doesn't mean you act on it. So what did he hear that made him act on it? That was the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek, which now just begs a bigger question now. So what was it about these two events that clinched it for him? Right? And more than that, isn't Rashi still digressing from the simple meaning of the text? The text is talking about listening, and Rashi talks about coming. So how do we understand it? Even with this answer, it's a little bit difficult. So now, let us begin to explain what's going on over here. Let's start with the war with Amalek. Okay, in last week's Parsha, after the Jewish people, a couple of weeks after the sea was split, and the Jewish people complained that they had no water, he gave them water, and then Amalek attacked the Jewish people. So, now, you have to figure, after the Jews left Egypt, every nation in the world was terrified of the Jewish people. Totally terrified. When they saw what happened, that God made 10 plagues, I mean, who wasn't afraid of the Jewish people? No one would start up with them. With one exception. Amalek was not terrified. They were not terrified. Now, Amalek, who is this Amalek? Well, let's just genealogy. Esau, the wicked Esau, had a firstborn son, Eliphaz. Eliphaz had a son named Amalek. So that's where we get Amalek comes from. Amalek is a grandson of Esau, and from him came a whole nation called Amalek. So Amalek comes along, and these are the descendants of that Amalek. And Amalek comes along, and he starts up with the Jewish people, and he loses miserably. Right? He loses miserably. The Jews wipe him out. Now, the Torah says, in source number 5, as part of the prophecies of Bilam, he says something about Amalek. Amalek has a unique destiny from all the other nations of the world. And let's see what it says. I wrote it in Hebrew and in English. It says, Reishis Goyim Amalek. Amalek was the beginning of nations. Source number 5. Vachrison, what's going to be his end? Adei Oved. But at the end, he will perish forever. Very brief statement. He was the first of nations, but at the end he will perish forever. What's that supposed to mean? Well, at the end of times, when Mashiach comes, all the nations are going to come around and be totally aware of the concept there's a God in this world and God's involvement in the universe. Everyone's going to know what the truth is, and they will change their lives. The non-Jews will change their lives and want to be involved in the participation of the Messianic era. All nations will turn their faces to God. That's what we have known in the prophecies. They'll all come and realize the truth. Except for Amalek. Amalek, rather, will be totally destroyed. They won't be there for the happiness and joy of Mashiach. That's what he's saying. The end is total obliteration. That's what the text is saying. The question is why? Why does Amalek deserve such a severe punishment? So, the simple answer is, Mashiach is going to be a time of tremendous awareness, and so if it's tremendous, so why will Amalek be excluded from this? So one possible answer is because of their cruelty, you may say. They were very cruel to the Jews. But that's not a good answer, because there are others who are even more cruel to the Jews. And they will be part of the Mashiach, because they'll regret what they did. They'll be part of it. So that's not an answer. A partial answer may be in the words Reishis Goyim Amalek. The first was. They were the first ones to start up with the Jews. Because nobody else started up with the Jews, but they were the first one to start up. So since they were the first one to start up, they're destined for doom. The question is, what does that mean? What does that mean exactly? So if you turn the page, you look in source number 7, the Rashi brings a medrash that says the following. Makes an analogy to a very hot steam bath. That the temperature of the steam bath is 100 degrees Celsius. Okay? Nobody even wants to come close to that bathtub. You go in there, you're going to burn like crazy. What happened? Comes along an idiot. He jumps in. Gets burnt, immediately dies to a crisp. What did everybody say afterwards? Everyone says, you know, he may have been crazy, but he probably cooled the water off a little bit. And maybe we could try the same thing one day. That's the story. Same thing with Amalek. All the nations were terrified of the Jewish people. How can we even touch these people? Look what he did to Pharaoh. Amalek says, big deal. We could do it. And they jump into this hot bathtub. They get scorched. But they cooled down the heat. They cooled down the heat. And therefore, pardon the opposite pun, like when you break the ice, if somebody tries it once, that's very thinkable. It's very thinkable. Just like, I forgot the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. The name is, John Bannister, right? Till he broke the 4-minute mile, it was impossible to break the 4-minute mile. Nobody could break it. As soon as he broke it, all of a sudden, it got broken 1,000,000 times. So the same thing, what you think is unthinkable until somebody thinks to do it. And once somebody thinks to do it, then, so we could say, since they were the ones who started up first, and because then we had so many problems, because then other non-Jews decided to try as well, that's why they're not going to be part of the happy party at the end. But that's not enough. It's not enough of an answer, because we see very strong language is used when we're speaking about Amalek. Very strong language. In last week's Parsha, Hashem says that His hand is against me, and my throne will never be complete if Amalek is alive, says Hashem. Turning back the page, I'm sorry, source number 6, it says, the hand upon the throne of Ka. Look at 6. It says, their hand against the throne of Ka, Yud Hey, but not all of Hashem's name. It says, Moshe did not use the tetragrammaton, meaning the Yud Hey Vav Hey. Just said Yud Hey. Why? So I have it underlined. As long as Amalek's seed exists, neither his name, God's name, nor his throne is complete. In other words, God really has a personal vendetta and animosity to these Amalekis. It's not just they were the first one. God's saying, as long as they're around, my name is never complete. My throne is never complete. I really can never sit on my throne properly. It seems it's almost like a personal disgust that Hashem has for what Amalek has done. And he swears that the completion of the world cannot happen until Amalek's out of the picture. So that's why they got to be obliterated. But it still needs a little bit more of explanation. Why is Amalek an issue with the throne of God? I mean, the throne of God is beyond what Amalek could ever do. But it seems they're really bad. We don't exactly know. From actions alone, you don't know how bad somebody is. You got to get a little bit deeper, and that's what we have to look at. What is the real bad part of Amalek? Now, that could take years to talk about. We're going to explain one little part of what's bad about Amalek. So to understand that, we have to understand the degree of wickedness with which Amalek began their offensive against the Jewish people. You have to know why they had this war. That's the critical point. Why were they first? So, basically we can say there are two different kinds of Yetzer Haras. There are two different kinds of bad inclinations. There are certain people with a negative inclination that they're hung up on something, they're into something, and they have a big lust for it. Person's into robbery, immorality, into money, idol worship. In other words, he has strong lusts. Now, would we say that such a person is opposed to good values per se? Not necessarily. He could love good things, he could love God, he could love his shul, he always talks about religion, but then he happens to enjoy certain endeavors that are not allowed to be done. He can't control himself. He believes in God. He's a good guy in general. He's a nice guy. But he has a certain hang-up. He just loves women. Every kind of them. So he can't control his passions. That's his problem. Does it mean when he does the immoral acts, he hates God? No. He loves God. But I'm weak. I love you, God, but I'm weak. The husband turns to the wife, I love you, dear, but I can't control myself whenever I see other pretty women. Right? Does it mean he hates the wife? No, he really loves the wife, but he loves a lot, and he has a big libido. He can't control it. You have people who, let's say even they worship idols. Could be they love God, but they get scared. When God doesn't send me stuff right away, I get nervous. And since I get nervous, I could get, I do things that aren't necessarily rational, and then I start worshiping another God, hoping he's going to help me. But I still love you and believe in you, Hashem. Person can really love money. He loves God and he loves money. It happens to be the love for money is a little stronger than love for God. So he doesn't have enough money, he may have to rob a bank. Again, does it mean that he feels that thievery is a good value? No. Does he feel that immorality is a good value? No. He'll be the first one to tell you it's a bad thing, but he loves money. What can I do? So that's sinning because of taiva, because of lust. That's one kind of person. Okay. Now there's a different kind of person. Another person, where if you keep doing this, after a while, you reach a level of negative behavior that not only that I live my life in a wrong way, and let's say better yet, the first category of person, if you say, what do you think about rabbis? They're nice people. They're okay. They're very virtuous people. I could never be one because I can't control my temptations. But rabbis are nice guys. You know, and they can have it often. A guy does a lot of errors, but he's friends with the rabbi. Why is he friends with the rabbi? Because he knows the rabbi represents the truth. And this guy's weak. So okay, he's weak. But he doesn't hate the rabbi. Then you have certain people, they hate the rabbi. Why do they hate the rabbi? Because after a certain amount of time, you begin to take a side. There's the side of good and the side of evil. And when you keep doing a lot of sins, not only do we say that you're a weak person who cannot control your passions, not to say, well, you're just into certain things, but you start developing feelings about the whole issue in general. As we'll explain why in a minute, but now you become what we call anti-good. And now it gets to the point where you're not doing it just because you can't control yourself, but you do it because, you know what, I really hate God. I hate what this religion stands for, and I hate anybody who stands up for this religion. And we can say psychologically why this is true, because you have to realize once you do something bad after a while and you know it's bad, it's hard to live with it. Let's say you were a morally principled person, and now you fell into a mishigas. All of a sudden, you fall into a different lifestyle. You start looking after pretty women, you start looking after money, and you want to have those things. And meanwhile, you're saying, well, that's not really good, but I can't control myself. But really, I'm a proud Jew. I love Judaism, and I'm a weak Jew amongst that group. But as time continues, you keep doing things that are wrong, it usually can't stay that way. Because then it comes to a point where you start asking yourself a question. If Judaism is a good religion, and I'm doing these things, am I a good person or a bad person? And it's very hard for a person to look himself in the eye and keep saying he's a bad person. And therefore, after time, quite often what happens is, what's so bad about what I'm doing? I see all other people doing it and they seem to be nice people. This religion is very confining. It's way too strict. It wasn't meant for human beings, this religion. This was for angels. It's a great religion after you die, but it's not a great religion before you die. And, all this religious persecution and repression and all these things. And if you'd ask the great psychologist, what's his name, Freud, would tell you that religion is the opiate of the masses, or whoever said, not him, the other guy said it, not Freud, I think Marx or one of these guys. Marx, religion is the opiate of the masses, and religion is for weak people, but people with enlightened minds who are smart people, they don't put this mishigas. It's a stupid thing. And then you go on the attack. Now, and then there comes a hatred. Why do you think there are different kinds of secular Jews in this world, and I'm sure you've met them both. There's secular Jews in the world who will respect a rabbi, and there are those who hate a rabbi. Right? I've experienced both of those kinds of people. So what's going on psychologically? The ones who respect the rabbi know what the rabbi is saying is the truth. And they know the religion is true, but they know that they're weak. And somehow they come to terms with that. The other one says, Rabbi, you think you're better than me? You think you're better than me? That you don't fool around with people? You think you're better than me? That you pray to God 3 times a day? You're not better than me. And the fact that now the rabbi is not doing anything to show it, but the person is saying, and you probably walk around, you think you're better, you think this, and they're looking to attack you. And really, the truth be told, if they had a gun, they'd shoot you. If it wasn't illegal, they would kill you. Why? Because just looking in your eyes, I'm disgusted when I look at you, for what you represent. There are people like that, and I can tell, when just by greeting a person, I can see by what kind of comment they throw at me. I get an attacking comment or just a pleasant comment. People, I have bar mitzvahs, secular people come, they're related, They'll say, Rabbi's a beautiful service, this and that, that's the way you should, it's a beautiful service, but without it, it's not for me. But, it's okay. The other people say, you know, Rabbi, I heard you talk about this idea of reward and punishment in your talk. I think that's ridiculous. You know, or I had once a woman, I forgot what it was. It was something about, why do women have to sit on the other side over here? What's going on there? You know, or I talked about, you know, somebody did a sin and God punished him. Well, why should God punish somebody for that? Like attacking. What are you attacking for? What's the problem? Because that person has a hatred for what it represents, and it's a hatred for what's the opposite. Because it's not me, and I feel threatened by that. And that's a much worse level of Yetzer Hara. A much worse level of Yetzer Hara. So the commentaries explain that there's a distinction between Amalek and all the other nations of the world and the difference of their hatred. Yes, all the nations of the world hate us, but for different reasons. It's very important to realize this. Every other nation that resisted the Jew was because of a lifestyle difference. Well, the Medrash says when God offered the Torah to different nations, said, sorry, we can't take it. You know why? Because our lifestyle is different.
Like to steal.
We're into stealing, we're into money, you know, and this religion isn't going to cut it for us. We got other interests. So it's a conflict. Judaism is a conflict of my lifestyle. Okay, now, it could come to the point, so they may, you know, lash out at the Jew because, you know, you think you're a privileged character. At the end of the day, they may be hating us for what we do, but it really started because they were into something. You follow? If you're into an immoral lifestyle and you believe that's correct, I mean, why do most of the people in the world today hate religion? Because most of the people are immoral and religion says you can't be. So it's nothing personal, it's just that, you know, I can't, you're not going to let me be immoral. And therefore I may come to hate you. But Amalek, the thing about Amalek is Amalek, they were never really into anything in particular. Amalek hated the Jew not because it would cramp their lifestyle. They hated the Jew because the Jew was righteous and he smelled of God. And anything that's good, they're not interested in. In other words, and this hatred, you know, if you hate Jews because you're into something, let's say you're into immorality. Let's put it this way. If you got the Jews, now all the non-Jews hate us, but for different reasons. The others hate us because, listen, we're immoral and they're moral, and that's going to be a problem for us. You know, if they'd be immoral, we'd like them too. Come be like us and everything's fine. Then there's the other group that says, we hate you. Why? Because you represent God. And God represents the truth. And we're not interested in that at all. Now, let me tell you the difference. Which one of those two entities would go on a suicide mission to attack the Jews, knowing that they will die after the mission? Now, the one who's into immorality says, I don't think it's a good idea for suicide, because I still want to enjoy my immorality. So let the Jews do what they're doing, and I'll stay far away from them, and we'll be immoral, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. Now, Amalek, in source 8, the Medrash says, you figure Amalek must have lived very close to where the Jews were going for them to be so bothered by the Jews. The Medrash says that Amalek came from Mount Seir, which was 400 kilometers away. They went way out of their way to fight with the Jews. Now, the Jews weren't there. The Jews weren't bothering them. There were no threat to Amalek. As a matter of fact, Amalek is not in the land of Eretz Yisrael. Now, you can understand why the Canaanites would hate the Jews, because our Torah says we got to impose Judaic law on Canaan. Well, the Canaanites are immoral people. They're into things. What, are you going to come to our country and tell us how to behave? Oh, we're going to fight you. We're going to fight you because you're going to take over Israel and make it a holy land. Well, we don't want you to take away from what we want. But that's a personal taiva. In other words, we hate you because you're doing something to our lives that we don't want. Amalek did not live in the land of Israel. Amalek would not have to destroy Jews to conquer Israel, would not have to attack Amalek. You live your own life over there, and we'll be in Israel. We have nothing to do with you. So why is Amalek coming out of nowhere and fighting the Jews? Anybody else I could understand. At least they have something to lose. Amalek had nothing to lose. Judaism didn't do anything to them. So why are they doing that? Why are you fighting? You know why? Because it's good and I hate it. And hatred has no reason, has no logical pattern. That's the difference. It's what's the psychological term? It's what's the word? A person does something totally without any sense. Psychological term. Something phatic. Psychopathic. Or another one. There's another one of those words.
Sociopath.
Whatever. It's like the guy's not normal. Right? Like, I hate you because I hate. When you hate someone, you're not going to do things that are rational. If you hate that which is good, you're not going to do it. You know, you're going to destroy it, even though it's going to destroy you. That's in our mind. That's what the rabbi said. Why would they fight with us? It's not in their best interest. You only want to destroy something that you truly hate. That's an illogical hatred. You know what? You guys represent good, and we hate good. Finished. Just looking at you gets me angry. So now the only pleasure I get in life is not looking at you. And if it means I have to die not to look at you, it's not because you're taking away my physical pleasures and I lose that and therefore I'm fighting you. It's because I just don't like what's good. There are people in this world who don't like what's good. Finished. And that was Amalek. And if you look in source number 9, for example, when Amalek was a little boy, Amalek asked his father Eliphaz, who will inherit the world and the world to come? And Eliphaz knew the score. He said, the Jewish people will inherit this world and the world to come. Therefore go now and dig for them well, so that they and their cattle may drink from, and prepare roads for them. If you do this, you will merit and inherit the world to come. He said, listen, you want to get the world to come? Be a good non-Jew and help the Jews do what they have to do. But Amalek did not do this. Rather, as soon as he told him the message, Amalek immediately went out to destroy the entire world. Okay?
Wow.
So that's the problem. Amalek will kill himself if he can kill the Jew. It was worth it that I could knock it out, even though we're going to suffer at the end. That's the word, pathological. That's the word I was looking for. The pathological hatred here. It knows no. You don't reason with these kinds of people. There are people who say, listen, I don't like you because you're making a problem for me. If you wouldn't make this problem, I could live with you. But a person says, I hate you. That's it. You know why? Because you represent what's good, and I just hate good. So those who hate good, you can't talk to these guys. You can't say, you live over here and we'll over here. There's no such thing as reasoning with them. Right? That's sort of what's going on with the Arabs over here. It's not a question. All they say reasons. Well, because the Arabs don't have the same benefits. And we don't have this. We don't have that. All these reasons is mishigas. The Arabs hate us for one reason, because we're God's people. Finished. They can't stand looking in our face. You've got 99% of the territory of the Middle East. Can't you give these Jews a little something? They're not even going to bother you. They're not interested in you. And any Arabs they ever deal with, the Arabs get 10 times better treatment than you treat your own people. So we're beyond logic here. If it's logical, United States says, we want to make more money, and because we don't have more money, we're going to go into Vietnam. We'll therefore champion democracy because it's a financial issue. Okay, that's one thing. The Arabs can't say it's financial issues. They got all the money. They got all the oil. They got all the resources. They have everything. What do the Jews got? A piece of desert land that's worthless to everybody. So why are you fighting them? Because we hate you. Because you represent the truth. And you hate what represents the truth, then we can't go to people at a table and start negotiating with them. That's why there's only one solution for Amalek. Destroy them. The other Canaanite nations, you say, we don't have to destroy you. If you're willing to become moral people, we can live with you. And maybe, because that's your problem. But Amalek, it's not a question of being able to negotiate with you. You have a pathological hatred for the Jewish people. And if you have that, so now what's going to happen at the end of times? When Mashiach's finally going to come? So he said that's going to be the end of them. That's going to be the end of Amalek. Why? Well, what happens at the end of the time? At the end of time, the perception of God and righteousness becomes clearer and clearer. It becomes clear. It's a good idea to be moral. The non-Jews, can you imagine? When Mashiach's going to come, when all the professors in universities are saying, you know what? It's a good idea to be married, a man to a woman. It's a good idea to have fidelity in marriage. We're beginning to see from God that it's a good thing to be this way. If it's a good thing, they're going to buy into it. That's what's going to happen. The rest of the world will get into this. They'll say, it's more pleasurable to not be a robber. God shows it to them. It's more pleasurable not to hit people. It's more pleasurable not to be arrogant. Okay, so we'll do it. What's going to happen with Amalek? as God gets clearer and clearer, Amalek becomes more and more enraged. Because that's what precisely Amalek hated. Amalek hates what's right because it's right. That's what they hate. It's not a confusion because of a different lifestyle. All the other non-Jews, they hate us because they're confused about lifestyle. And they feel their lifestyles are going to be wrecked up. That's why they hate. But Amalek, we hate you because you represent what's good and right in this world, and we don't like what's good and right in this world. Finished. So when things get clearer and clearer, Amalek is going to go out of his mind. And the righteousness that they hate and that they fought all their lives is now going to make an everlasting impression on the entire universe. And this is totally contradictory to their life. And in fact, they'll just all commit suicide. They'd rather die than live in that reality. That's what it means. Reishis Goyim Amalek. Amalek is the first of the nations. Since you were the first to stand up, and by standing up first, there was no rational reason for doing it. It's not that you were into something, but it's because you hated righteousness. So that hatred to righteousness at the end of the day will wipe you out, because that's what the world's going to be. It's just righteous. And you'll be wiped out. And that's why you were first. You were first for no reason. That's the problem with Amalek. So now the question becomes, and I really said it already, but just I'll repeat this idea. So how did Amalek get to that point? You don't wake up one day and say, I hate good because it's good. So the question is a very important idea now. Everybody has free will. Everyone has free will. You have free will to be a tzaddik like Moshe, or as wicked as Yerovam ben Nevat. You go to the extremes. Your free will can make you a very, very nice person or a very, very terrible person. But you have to know, as the Rambam and many people say, that even though you start, in the middle area based on your choices, but you're going to have to go in a certain direction. In other words, once you make the choices start to push you in a certain direction. And it comes to a point where if you make enough wrong choices, that you no longer really have any choice anymore. Okay? Because when you make a choice in life, you have to come to terms with the choice. You've got to justify the choice that you made. You have to be able to solidify your position with that choice. So up to a certain point, even if you make bad choices, the person can still change. I made wrong choices, but it's not. You could say that's not me though. It's not me. I'm really a better person, and I've made a lot of bad choices. But it gets to a point where you make so many bad choices that those bad choices become so deeply rooted into the person's psyche, then that person just becomes an opponent of the opposite choices that he didn't pick. That's what he becomes. It depends for good or for bad choices. That's it. After so many willing, rebellious, negative choices, at a certain point in life, you entrench yourself into that place called the negative choices, and that's the only position now that you can be at, and you hate anything else that's different than that. That's the way it works. You lose your free will choice. You lose it because you chose to lose it. You can't keep making the wrong choices all the time and then still say, but I love what's good and proper in this world. You can't. And that was the problem with Amalek. So that's what was the fear. And that's how Amalek is different. Amalek, you can never reason with them. They're so entrenched in this, they can't even begin to see there's another side anymore. And therefore, it's not even the realm of possibility. I can't even hear what you say. The Arabs can't even hear that Jews should live in the Middle East. They can't even hear it. They've made so many wrong choices, they can't even hear it. The French, the English, they hate us also, but they can at least hear. Let there be Jews over there. Big deal. Let them be there. They don't bother us. But the Arabs hate us that much, they can't even talk sense because they made so many wrong choices. It gets to the point where they say this. We cannot accept this. And therefore there's no hope for these kinds of people. So now you say, so what does that have to do with us? We're not part of Amalek. But the answer is what happens to Amalek in general is an indication what can happen to the individual in their own lives with the choices that we make in our own personal lives. No one should ever think that Amalek is the only nation that's doomed for destruction. But rather Amalek is a symbol of a much greater danger that is involved for each and every one of us with the choices that we make as individuals. And when the choices that we make is really like a microcosm of what Amalek is all about. And we can be entrenched in our own decisions to become an opponent of the opposite simply because it's the opposite choice. And that becomes a great danger that we all have. You come to a point where a person loses their own logic, loses their own reason, and becomes an opponent of the opposite just because it's the opposite. And he's even ready to ruin his life because it's in the grip of his choice. You could have, for example, in a very similar, a husband and wife. Husband and wife. Husband has his taivas, woman has her taivas. And they come in conflict. Whatever. Let's say, I'm just giving an example. Let's say the woman's taiva is money. And the man's taiva is sex. And guess what? Whatever the wife's going to do, it ain't going to fulfill his sexual drive. And whatever money the man's going to make is going to satisfy her monetary drive. Got problems. And therefore you make mistakes. You make mistakes. The woman will, shop to the point of, bankrupting the family. The guy will be fooling around with everybody in the world. Now, it comes in the beginning, the husband says, I love my wife, I love my wife, I love my wife, but I can't control myself. The wife says, I love my husband, but I love fancy clothes. That could go on for a certain amount of time. Then it comes to a point where it goes beyond. You forget about the reasons why you're into that, and you just say, after so many times being with other women, you can say, who's my wife? And after buying so much stuff, so who's my husband? And then you start to hate the spouse. Why? Because he represents the opposite. The husband keeps saying, what are you wasting your money for? He's right. He says, oh, I hate you now because you represent the opposite. And then the husband hates the wife. You're so moral and prim and proper. You represent the opposite. All of a sudden it gets to the point where we're not talking rationally. And that's a real critical point in understanding if people should have marriage counseling or not. Should people get divorced? Should they have marriage counseling? This is the litmus test. Would you destroy the other person? Would you destroy yourself to destroy the other person or not? That tells you it's gone too far. Right? Because then you don't care. You don't even care if you be destroyed as long as I destroy the other one. If it's just, well, I'd like to be with a lot of women, so why should I destroy myself if I can still be with other women? But it gets to the point where you just hate that other person. Why? What do they do? Because they represent the opposite. Whatever it is. Anytime there's divorce, there is a problem somewhere. It can't be there's two wonderful, nice people, and both sides are such wonderful people that decide to get divorced. There's no such a thing. I don't care what you say. There's at least have to be one, and most likely two problems. It can't be two wonderful people, very considerate and kind and thinking of the other person, and one of them just get divorced? It's not possible. So either you can say one was a monster and the other wasn't. It's possible, but that's still rare. It's mostly the big problem with the two of them. And that unique too. In other words, that person can be friendly with everybody else, but not with this person. Because whatever it is, the chemistry, whatever, I'm not condemning people who get divorced. I'm just saying there's major problems. And it's a society that's breeding these problems. It's a society that tells you before you get married, think of yourself only. What do you expect to get out of marriage? So you can get to the point, okay, she's driving me nuts, he's driving me nuts, let's just get divorced. We don't have to kill each other. But then really, if you stay at that point, you can still, good marriage counseling can still fix it. Good marriage counseling say, you know what, you have this big taiva, let's try to deal with your taiva. Why do you feel you have to sleep with every woman you see? You got a sickness, maybe you want to heal it? Yeah, I really wish I could. Oh, okay. We'll give you therapy for that. Why are you a shopaholic, Mrs. Blow out the cover of the credit line? Well, that's how I get my self-esteem, by wearing fancy clothes. Well, that's a sickness. Yes, it's a sickness. Okay, we can give you therapy too. If they're both willing to have therapy, you can still have a marriage. All of a sudden, when the person makes so many wrong choices, and they say, I hate that person. Why do you hate him? Everything he represents. I hate everything about him. I want to destroy him. I want to destroy him already. There ain't going to be no therapy. If you want to take the city down, there's nothing you can do. You can't do anything. That's always... So if nobody wants to get help, why are you going to save such a marriage? You can't. The person who will destroy everybody, will destroy the kids. You see this all the time. It's all the time. They not only want to destroy, we say, if you're going to get divorced, what's going to happen financially? Both you're going to live in a worse standard of living. The kids will start saying, I don't care! He deserves this. My time to punish him. And that's what happens. Then you're not talking to anybody. There's no marriage counseling. So this Amalek business isn't, this abstract idea. This is a very, very real idea for each and every one of us. So now we have to bring this all back to Yitro. Yitro was running around from idol to idol. Right? And there was a time, I'm sure, that when he was running around from idol to idol, it was an issue of lust. Right? A pleasure. Now, we don't know about that lust anymore of idol worship. It's been destroyed. But in those days, idols did give her a certain type of pleasure for a person. So Yisro's, I'm trying to find out which idol is going to give me the best pleasure in life. He's going around to everyone. Then all of a sudden, he stops dead in his tracks. One. That's what the Rashi is saying. He saw the splitting of the sea and the destruction of Amalek. What did he see in these two events? He saw that a person doesn't forever remain free in his choices. He sees, as we discussed, that it comes to a point where a person makes so many willful bad choices that he becomes entrenched in a position to be the opponent of the opposite just because it's the opposite. You find this, so many times, again, in divorce. They have to divide up what they want. And let's say there was a picture. And the spouse couldn't care less about the picture. But when they heard the other spouse wants the picture, now I want the picture. Why? So you shouldn't have it. Am I making up a joke? It's not a joke. Really, I couldn't care less about it. As long as they hear what you want. Really, I don't want custody of kids. But you heard the other one wants custody of kids. Now I want custody of the kids. Because I hate you. Because you're the opposite. I just hate you. There's nothing to do with sense anymore. Right? You have choices in your marriage for years and years. You have a choice. You can be forgiving. You can be compassionate. You cannot make that mistake. And you kept making the wrong choice, 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 the wrong choice. You think you end up with free will choice after a while. You just hate the other person because they're the opposite. Finish, right? So, how does he see this? He's just an observer of history. Where did he learn this from? He learned this from Paro. Paro got beaten to shreds. 10 plagues. The country was destroyed. And yet, he hears the Jewish people might be lost in the desert. He goes after them. Now, come on, are you an idiot? And now more than that, the sea splits for them. You idiot! You see the sea split for them already? Did you ever see? This is not like a little thing, a strong God walked in and said, "I'm going to go." He split the sea. I mean, you never saw this, It's like incredible. Go, huh? So go after them. Are you nuts? Do you know what's going to happen? That same God who split the sea, do you think that God's going to take you down? I don't care. I hate them. What Yisro says, how irrational could that Paro be? You know why? When you make so many bad choices in life, you become an idiot to the bad choices. Lesson number 1. Then, a couple weeks later, all of a sudden, Amalek wages war against the Jews. Where every Defense Department official in Amalek said, Mr. Amalek, ambassador, we're going to get creamed. I don't care. It's a boiling hot bath that we will die. I don't care. As long as I can slap God's face, I'm happy. Wow. So now Yisro gets bang, bang. He learns 2 lessons. That a person has freedom only up to a certain point. And past that point, he loses his freedom. And even if he wants to get out, he can't get out. Because he can't see it any other way. And Amalek and Mitzrayim wasn't just a current event of anti-Semitism to Yisro, but that served as a warning to himself. And Yisro says, I'm not too much different than those guys. I'm bouncing around from one idol to another. And I'm constantly making the wrong choices. How much longer is it going to be till I'm going to end up like them? And after he saw those 2 events, he was so scared, he felt that maybe I won't ever be able to pull myself out of this mess. And that is why he finally decided it's time to get out of there. Well, I still can. Well, I still have my humanity of free will choice. And it's expressed so beautifully in a midrash, which is brought down in sources 10 and 11. I don't have time to read it inside, but it's beautiful. We know that Paro had 3 advisors when he decided the final plan of the Jewish people, how to destroy them. Bilam said, destroy them. Yitro said, no, you shouldn't. They're good people. He ran away. He protested. And Eob was silent. Anyway, what happened years later, so Yitro left. Didn't hear from him anymore. Bilam remained a good advisor to Paro, telling him all the things that Paro wanted to hear. Many years later, Bilam runs into Yitro. And he sees that, things are going pretty good with Yitro. Okay? And history bears this out. That Yitro eventually has great-great-grandchildren who were rabbis who would be who were great scholars. Came out of Yisro. The greatest scholars of Israel came out of a non-Jew. Came out of Yisro. And so Bilam said, you weren't such a religious guy. How did you become such a religious guy? So he gives a beautiful analogy. He says, can we compare it to a hunter of birds? He had captured one and was about to catch another, when the bird perched itself on a statue of the king. Whereupon the hunter became perplexed and said to the bird, if I throw a stone at you, I may forfeit my life. Because he can break the statue of the king. King won't be too happy to see that. And if I use the pole, I fear lest it will not reach as far as the king's statue. I know not what to do. The hunter says, I guess I can't catch you. He says, all I can say is that you made a very good escape. The bird escaped good. He perched himself on the statue of the king. Likewise, when Bilam, knowing that Amalek and Yitro had been among the counselors of Paro, and that Amalek's name had been blotted out, whereas Yitro repented, he said to the latter, thou hast escaped well. You made a good escape. So what does that mean? What is this little analogy saying? What did Bilam mean when he said to Yitro, you made a good escape? You're like the bird who stood on the statue of the king? So Yitro answered that this game of running around from one idol to another can only go on for so long. Past a certain point, it becomes very dangerous. And you know what? I have a Yetzer Hara. That's a hunter who's trying to get me down. That Yetzer Hara is trying to kill me. And he keeps trying to get me from one mishigas to the next. One bad choice, another bad choice, another bad choice, until finally, I'm going to be finished. And Yitro saw how it happened to others. And Yitro understood that he was in great spiritual danger. And he said, I can't keep playing this game anymore. Now, in North America, it used to be called Marlboro country. If you look at all the movies, danger and being scared and running away, it's not cool. It's not cool to say you're afraid of things in America. Canada, I can do whatever I want, no problems, etc., etc. Why are you so prudish about these things? What's the problem? I can run into anything. It's not going to affect me. Right? A lot of Orthodox Jews say it's not going to affect me. I can go to rated R movies. It's not going to affect me. I can go to places where there's a lot of mixing of men and women. It's not going to affect me. And you know what? And the opposite. I show how strong I am. I can deal with this. In Judaism, that's not the rule. Because there are things that we cherish and we have values, and we go way out of our way to make sure we don't lose those beautiful values. And we try to do what we can to guard them very carefully. And this was the attitude of Yisro. Yisro was saying, how long can I fool around and being guaranteed that I can still pull myself out? Especially after I saw what happened to Paro, that he couldn't even have the brains to not follow them into the sea. And especially when I saw what happened to Amalek, they couldn't have the brains to know not to fight a war they're going to get killed at. That's what Yisro understood. Yisro understood that the only way to save himself is through the Torah. That's the statue. Because I got to get out of this mishigas. Now the question now becomes a little bit further. And now we'll see ultimately it was bothering Rashi. So why was Yisro the only one to be able to do this and nobody else? The whole world saw what happened. They all knew what happened. Now this is what's bothering Rashi. The beginning of the parsha says, and Yisro heard what happened. And the next plus is going to say, and he came and joined the Jews. So what's bothering Rashi more than anything else? Why in the world is Yisro coming? That's what's bothering him. The whole world knew about this. The whole world knew about it. So why is he the one? That's the problem. So the answer is, the commentaries say, the Lev Eliyahu says, I don't have time to read it inside, they all say, Because with everything that Yisro had, there's one great quality he had, and it was a true quality. He had a tremendous desire to find the truth. He truly wanted to find the truth. And when he was going from idol to idol, he wasn't just fooling around for the sake of having a good time, but truthfully he was searching, and he was looking. And because he was searching and had a commitment towards the truth, that's why he tried out all religions. And every religion he gave, I tried it out for a while, it feels good, but there's something wrong with this. He found it unfulfilling. And went on to the next, because he felt this is not the actual truth. But nevertheless, as much as he is searching, he knows that if you keep fooling around so much, keeping all of these things, one day you're going to lose any sense of what the truth is. You can be looking for the truth all day long. But when you find all these narishkeit, every day, from one to the next, you come to this great philosophy. You know what it's called? There is no ultimate truths in the world. AKA, you become a liberal. What's a liberal? Well, you have an opinion. I have an opinion. There is no truths. If there are no truths, then whatever I do can't be bad. And then you're finished. So Yisro said, I'm looking for truths. But if you know what, if I don't watch it, I'm going to come to the conclusion there are no truths. If there are no truths, I'll be finished. And you know what happens to people who think there are no truths? They become like Amo, they become like Paro. I'm in great danger. I have to run and find the truth. And there's one I haven't tried yet. And that's Judaism. Right? So as much as he was searching for the truth, he knows in the search of the truth, you could be swallowed up by all the untruths of the world. And it's similar to Avnei Nezer with Avram Avinu, for example. Avram Avinu was willing to be thrown into a fiery furnace at the age of 70. It's before he came to the true understanding of God. So why was he willing to be thrown in the fiery furnace? The answer is because he knew one thing. Nimrod and the fiery furnace were for sure not true. He may not yet have had the truth, but he knew what. You know when something's not true, you also know it. You don't always know what's true, but you can know what's not true even before you come to the truth. He knew one thing. Bowing down to a statue is not true. Believing God of fire is not true. I'm not sure what is the truth yet, but that for sure is not the truth. So Avram said, I'm finished with that, and I'll be willing to die for it, even though he hadn't found the truth. So Yisro was going from truth to truth, but Yisro understood if he waits around too longer, he's going to fall and be a victim of the non-truths. So when he saw the two events and the probability that Judaism might be the belief that conveys the ultimate truth, figure out that he better get out quickly while he has a chance. So that's what happened. So that was really Rashi's question. Rashi says, what did he hear? And come. The biggest question of the parsha is, how in the world could Yisro have done it? The whole world didn't. Can you imagine if the whole world today would see the splitting of the sea, all these things? Nobody would become Jewish. Nobody. Nobody became Jewish. So why was he? Because he looked carefully at two events of history. And those two events of history, he looked at it openly and honestly and was searching for the truth. And he found it. And that's why he came. That's what Rashi says, why he came. Right? So the message for us is extremely powerful. Number one, you've got to be very careful with the choices that you make. So, well, I'll do this. I know it's wrong, but, I'm weak. I know it's wrong, and I'm weak. If you keep making the wrong choices, you will not just become a person who's weak. You'll become the one who becomes an opponent of the opposite because it's the opposite. And you don't know how long you have free will choice. And it doesn't have to be in the whole Judaism. There's certain aspects of Judaism. You can talk about any one particular Judaism. You say, I'm an Orthodox Jew, but I totally oppose this point of orthodoxy. Well, I could pick any random one. I could pick any one. You're a good Jew, but let's say, tzedakah ain't your thing. And you get tested all the time. Should you give tzedakah? Should you not give tzedakah? And you keep not giving tzedakah. So what are you eventually going to say? So in the beginning you say, listen, I just, it's hard to give tzedakah. I don't have enough money, this and that. You can go on vacations, you can this, and you have money in the bank. What do you mean you don't have enough money? I don't have enough money. Okay, he's got a taiva. He's a taiva, take care of himself. Fine. But then you keep making the wrong mistake, then eventually you get to the point and say, you know what? I think tzedakah is stupid. You know what? Giving tzedakah would be detrimental to society. And then people come to you and says, you know what? It'd be the worst thing for me to do is give you tzedakah. I think God made a mistake on that one. And then you've lost your hope to ever give tzedakah again. And then you hate the people who do give tzedakah. And all of a sudden, when people get honored for giving charity, you have negative things to say about them. Because why? Because now you've already lost your free will choice in that area. You know, people don't go to Minyan. After a while, you stop going to Minyan, you just believe it's a stupid thing to do. And you'll never be able to go to Minyan again. So any aspect in your life, you know, you're arrogant. You know, you don't work at it, you're never going to be a humble person. So you got to realize, you figure, well, you know, I'll do tshuva. You know, should you learn Torah? No, I can't learn Torah. When I retire and I'm old, I'll do it. And guess what? You make so many wrong choices. When you become old, you say, you know what? It's a whole thing stupid to learn Torah. And finish, you don't learn Torah. So you realize the precious gift of free will choice, you can destroy it yourself, A. B, even when you're searching and you're looking for the truth, you got to realize how you become influenced by society around you. And you can say, listen, I'm searching, you know, what could I be doing wrong? The answer is no telling how far you're going to get into the wrong place. And that was Yitro. Yitro, therefore, said, you know what? I've got to be able to find the truth. I got to stop playing around this game. But the only way he was able to come to it because he had an honest integrity to find the truth. He wouldn't be fooled by that. And that now brings us back with Yitro now. He says, you know, I better try Judaism. I think this is going to be the one that's going to do it. I think this is the real truth is over here in Judaism. Now, he goes out into the desert. Now, this is a big political issue. Should Moshe go out to him or not? I'm going to go to the priest? I'm going to the cardinal? What kind of business is this? The cardinal could use this for bad things against the Jews. Why should I give him credibility? So God says, listen, I'm the one who brings close. I'm the one who makes distance. Hashem says, go meet him, go hug him. Why? Because he's coming with the attitude that he still wants to have the ability to not lose his free will choice. And why is that? Because he's looking for the truth. And a man who's looking for the truth, you hug and kiss him no matter how bad he is. But if he's sincerely looking for the truth, a person can be so low, but if he has not lost the free will choice, and he's sincerely looking for the truth, then that's a person that you bring back. Right? And now you understand why the name of the Parsha is called Yitro, and why the Torah goes out of order. Put the story Bedavka before the giving of the Torah. Because if you want to receive God's Torah, you've got to know two things. Number one, that just like in the analogy, the Yitro is following you, getting into every mistake, but you're that bird that's being hunted. You know, if I go on the king's statue, I won't be hunted anymore. The only safe place you have from the Yetzer Hara is in Torah. You want to be able to make moral choices that are proper. You're going to not find it in Zen. You're not going to find it in anything, not in Christianity. The only way you're going to really find a haven from the Torah is with Torah. And that's why Yisro came. He came to save himself because he knew the only emes wasn't Torah. But more than that, and second point is, you can only come to Torah if you're really looking for the truth. If you're not looking for the truth really, you're not going to find the Torah there either. That's the two, and that's what the Michalowicz writes in his book about how you should approach when you're learning Torah. And so you're learning Torah, there's two things you have to do. Number one, you realize when you're learning Torah, what you're really doing is finding the most outstanding way to get close to Hashem. Better than prayer. The most outstanding way to get close to Hashem is looking what is in his heart. What is in his Torah. If you get close to Hashem, that will save you from the Yetzer Hara. Number one. So when you're learning Torah, it's not enough. You know, if you're learning Torah, you know, it's very interesting. I really love the PARSHA class because the Rabbi keeps me entertained for an hour and a half. You know, that is not going to be the kind of Torah that's going to save you. Now, you may come initially for that. Okay, you talk Shalol L'Shma, Baal L'Shma. But when you come to the class, you say, you know, I'm coming here because I want to get close to God. Because what the Rabbi is saying is from other people who is telling me exactly what's about God, and I feel I'm going to get a little closer to God when I leave this room. Man, it's like a guy going on a date. Imagine a guy going on a date. He's going out with like 800 girls. And of course, no one's good for him. So why is he going on this date? To have another experience. A rich experience of knowing many women. But how about get close to one? No, I can't have commitment issues. You come to Torah, you know, there's a lot of interesting. I read in the newspapers some very interesting stuff today. I read how the stock market's going down. I read how this company's got an IPO. It's a lot of interesting things. I read some interesting phenomena in Antarctica. You know, I'd like to learn some phenomena about the Torah too. It's probably interesting too, just like a Newsweek magazine. It ain't going to save you. That kind of Torah ain't going to save you a darn. There's a lot of people who learn a lot of Torah, and it doesn't help them. You know why? Because they're not learning Torah to get close to God. That's what you said. I want to come to this because I want to be saved from this Yetzer Hara. I can't only be saved from the Yetzer Hara if I'm close to the source of the opposite, which is God. That's how we have to learn Torah. That's how we have to teach our children to learn Torah. When your child's learning Torah, you say, "Oh, wow, lucky! We're going to learn God's Torah." The difference is to learn Torah with angst, with trembling fear. On the one hand, that you're approaching the Infinite One, and with great joy, that you're privileged to be learning by the Infinite One. You know, I remember, in certain schools, the principals, there's two ways you can learn. You can learn by taking a book in your hand and reading like this. That's good for a magazine. But when you're learning Torah, and you see people learning Gemara, they're bent to the task. That's how you're learning Gemara. That's the holy book. I want to get close to this book. Not, what can you entertain me with? It sounds like a little point, but it's not. It's a huge point. It's a huge point. You live in a world where everyone's got to entertain you. So you figure, I pick up a chumash, it should be entertainment the same way. No, if you want to get close to God. That's what Yitro said. I got to get close to God. But more importantly is the second point. You got to come with all honesty that you're looking for the truth. Looking for the truth means what's going to happen one day when you find it. If you really are looking for the truth, what's going to happen one day when you find it? No?
You'll believe it?
No! You have to change. Now, are you prepared to change? If the book tells you the truth, and the truth was all that you didn't have, are you ready to change your lifestyle? No! Then you're not looking for the truth. And then you'll take the Torah and say, that's what I feel too. And you'll distort what's written in the Torah. You can walk out of this class and I think it's a very good idea we should have ecumenical religious services, because you see Moshe did it with Yisro. That's as you come up with your own agendas. You're not looking for the truth. That's what we get out of this parsha. I think the rabbi should go to the church and do service with them too, because you see that from Moshe too. Oh, you have an agenda, you're not looking for the truth. The truth says, if you really want the truth's going to be something you don't have. You know what? There's a problem. You see, God is truth. If you're coming to God, it means you're coming for the truth. Yisro understood that. That's what he understood. How do you understand that? He understood from the negative. He saw how crazy it can be if you don't do that. Sometimes you can't get it in a positive way. You got to see, look, how do you get sometimes people who have addictions? How do you get off of the addiction? When you see somebody destroy themselves from it. Now, addictions is not just drugs. It's not just alcohol. There's the addiction of, somebody coined the term last week, I'm trying to remember it. Thrillaholics. How many of us here suffer from the addiction of thrillaholicism?
Well, what's that?
Thrills. What's new? What's exciting? We went to Florida already. How many times can I go to Florida? I'm a thrillaholic. Now we go to the Caribbean. And the Caribbean, I did that already 8 times already. So now we'll go to the North Pole, space. We'll go here, we'll go there. One wife, come on, she's boring. I'm a thrillaholic. You don't think that's a strong addiction? Well, you know what? People got, there's a reason why this channel changes from your seat. Used to be how to make the whole malach of walking from your couch to the television and change it. What are they about with that? Beep, 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 beep. You have 8 things at the same time. I just can't know what's going on. There's probably a lot of other things I'm missing. There's thrills in life I'm missing. You're a thrillaholic. This Torah is boring. It just has the truth. Just has the truth. Why can't people go to one shul? No, I can't be a member of one shul, because then that rabbi will really know who I am, and he's going to pin me down, and I'm going to have to do the truth. I go to 8 shuls. I go to this shul in the morning in the weekday. I go to this shul at night. I go to this shul Friday night. I go to this shul Shabbos morning. Because why? Because each one gives me a different thrill. And you know what? I don't really have to know much truth. Oh, if you stick with one shul and one rabbi, and that rabbi sees that, so I've been with you, and I've seen him for the last 10 years, and I'm telling you what the emes is, I don't want to hear that rabbi. I'm going to another shul where no rabbi will know and tell me the truth. And as much as people will contend that they, I don't mind if people go to another shul. Want to go to another shul? You really grow another shul? Fine. But this Mishigat's going to 6 shuls? Then you're a thrillaholic. Then you really don't have any one rabbi. But if you make it simple, you make sure to invite all 6 rabbis, because it looks like you're a very big person. That's 6 rabbis. You have, what do you call it? You have a high RPM, rabbi per membership quotient at your simcha. See, I know a lot of rabbis, so a lot of rabbis will come to my simcha, and everyone's going to think I'm great. But you don't have one rabbi. You have one rabbi who knows your real weaknesses and knows the emes for you.
because you made sure not to hang around any one rabbi too long. So no one will know who you are. You're a thrillaholic. And that's the biggest addiction of today's society. The others are just subcategories of it. If it's booze or if it's drugs, it's all just, it's a bigger category. More sophisticated people are more clever, because I can have this without having to be addicted to a substance. I can be addicted to life and all the different thrills that are there. And Yitro was the first thrillaholic. And he says, there's only one way I can get out of this, because thrillaholic, at the end of the day, you end up with nothing. End up with no truths and garnished, even if you're an Orthodox Jew. So you got to run to the Torah. That's the only situation. So that's why the parsha is called Yisro. Yisro tells us these. That's why if you want to talk about getting the Torah at Sinai, forget it. You're not going to get it if you don't have the Yisro attitude to know that Torah is the only truth that will save you from any troubles. And you have to seek it out truly to seek it out. And the biggest proof that Yisro was a true seeker. Now listen, one more point. Moshe welcomes him in. Now imagine, the next day, now imagine that you might get a little bit humbled, you know. Imagine, Moshe took in a cardinal. The next day, he sees Moshe, it's a big lineup. Everyone's waiting in line to speak to Moshe. He turns to Moshe and says, you can't do this. This isn't a good system. What are you doing? I was waiting for hours. You can't do this system. He's criticized Moshe. You know, in the first day in, you're a new kid on the block. I mean, Haltzachaim. You know, relax. Wait a couple days. No, he's a man of truth. He saw the truth, and was really the truth. Even if his son-in-law is the one who gave the Torah to Sinai, if he's making a mistake, he's making a mistake. And he's my son-in-law. I'm going to tell him he's making a mistake. That's a man of truth. So this whole first section is telling you, you want to be able to be privileged to get the beautiful part of what Torah is, you better know how important it is. And B, you better be looking for the truth. If you're looking for the truth, you will find it. If you're not looking for this, you won't find it. And you see how far this goes. It could be Yisro, it could be the lowest of the low. Yisro was the lowest of the low. You can't find anyone so far away from the truth and so far away from Judaism. And that's what they're saying. He was Kohen Midyan, a priest of Midian, so low, but on the other hand, he can come all the way and convert and become a Yid and tell Moshe even how to run his show. If you know the value of Torah and you come to it in truth, you will succeed. Hashem should help us, that we should be able to be willing to accept and hear those kinds of truths.